Hi everyone, this is Linda with Linda's New Plants for You. Today I want to talk a little bit about the hanging plants, the different types of hanging plants that I have, and how I make cuttings of them. The one that you're looking at that we're going to start off with is the variegated curly leaf lipstick plant. This is very hard to find. I wouldn't consider it a rare plant, but it's very hard to find, and I feel very fortunate to have it. I tried to make some cuttings of it, and I tried to root them. In fact, I'm going to get those because I want to put those in soil. And here they are. They've been in here for quite a while, and I just can't get them to root. Now you can see there's a little moss on the bottom of this, but that's only for about a week. I've changed this water quite often, and as you can see, there are no roots on here. I can't find any information on how to root it other than in soil. And so that is what I'm going to do today. But one of the reasons for my video isn't as much for propagation as it is for keeping the plant full. I hear a lot of people complain that their hanging plants get bare on top, up here, whether it's the Senecio family or just, you know, there's a lot of different hanging plants, and they're all pretty much the same. One of the things that's really important is when you take a cutting from a plant like this, don't take it from the bottom, because if you do, it's going to branch out wherever you cut it. So if you want the long, straight, beautiful, graceful look without all that bunching at the bottom of the plant, you don't want to take your cuttings from the bottom, because that's going to cause it to branch out at the bottom. You want to take your cuttings from the top. And that's true with this plant. It's true with string of pearls, string of hooks, all the string of plants. It's true with the Tradescanthia, if I can get the word out. Any type of hanging plant, and actually, even if it's not a hanging plant, there's a lot of plants that you want to be careful where you cut them, because that's where it's going to branch out, and if you don't want that fullness in that spot, then you don't want to cut it there. So I'm going to today be working on this plant for this video, but I've shown you in the past my string of pearls, which there again, I hear a lot of people get sad because their string of pearls gets very bare at the soil, but the strings themselves are long. And one of the reasons for that is not enough light at the top of that pot. In fact, for me, it is the reason. I had a string of pearls in my kitchen window, but it was just in a position where it didn't get that full sun at the top of that plant for any reasonable length of time. I moved it into the same side of the house, a different window, where there wasn't anything impeding that sun, and it once I got the light on there, that improved greatly. Well, then it got too long to keep in that space, so I ended up moving it to my west window, and it wasn't getting enough light in there. So one of my LED lights that I have attached to my stand, I have directly over that string of pearls. And it's so full in the soil you couldn't fit another pearl in there if you wanted to. So that definitely is the key, keeping that bright light at the top of the soil. And of course, you're gonna have to water very often, because it's going to dry it out faster. But be careful that you don't overwater, because these are succulents. All those little beads hold water. And if you overwater it, you can tell, because on the string of pearls, it'll actually try to pop open like a pea, or it'll almost look like an eyeball opening up. You don't want it to get to that point, so that would be your key to slow down on the water. Rather underwater than overwater on the string of pearls, or any of the string plants for that matter. They can come back usually from underwatering. And okay, enough about that. Let's talk about this guy. I love this plant so much, and I almost lost it here about a month ago or two, because I wasn't able to take care of it, and it made me so sad. I really didn't think it was going to come back, but it did. It's healthy. It feels good. It needs water right now, but we're gonna take care of that. Okay, I'm gonna take this pot and these cuttings, and I'm gonna put them in that pot. Set this aside for a moment. I think I need to. All right. I'm going to take these out of here. And you can see there's nothing, not even the tiniest bit of root starting. So we're going to get that out of the way. I'm going to fill this with soil. And we have sunshine today. For those of you that live in the warmer climates, you're probably saying, yeah, so big deal. But trust me, when you live in Wisconsin, you want sunny days. I may have told this story before, but most of my family was in California, and my grandma used to say, oh, I wish that sun would just not come out for a day. And of course, my mom and I would kind of giggle about it, and we'd say, why would you not want the sun to come out? But I get it, because we've had a few summers here where it was so incredibly hot and sunny for so long that when we did finally have a cloudy, rainy day, it was welcome. So I get it. But it sounds funny. It sounds funny to have somebody say, I wish the sun wouldn't come out. All right. I think I'm prepared before I turn on that camera, and I never am, and I apologize for that. I always think I got it all handled, and lo and behold, I forget something. But not a big deal. My channel is for the patient people of the world that are tired of all the hype and want to just chill out. Okay. I am going to cut some of this off just because I don't know how much of this stem is still viable, and actually, I don't know. Well, we'll see. I'm going to take a few of these leaves off. And I'm going to stick this in the soil. Probably could have cut that even a little shorter, but we'll leave that for now. And my biggest reason for doing this, let me turn you a little further here. Okay. My biggest reason for what I'm doing right now is because I'm trying to make some cuttings for a friend of mine who's done so much for me and has given me so much from her collection. And I did try to send her some cuttings, but they just dried up on her. They didn't root for her either, so. This is my last ditch effort to propagate this plant. If anybody has this plant and they've had success propagating it, please let me know how you did it in the comments section, because like I said, I searched and searched the internet and I just couldn't find anything on this plant. I think I found one picture, but there was nothing said about it. It was just under images. This plant likes obviously well-draining soil. What plant doesn't? And it also likes sun. I do let the soil dry down to the bottom, pretty much to the bottom of the pot. But you got to kind of keep a close eye on that, because when you let a plant dry out that far, there's a fine line between that and letting it go too far. So that's one thing about this plant. You got to kind of be diligent in the watering. I do take this plant to the sink periodically and spray it, because I am concerned about, well, to get the dust off, and also I don't want it to get spider mites, and that's usually where they come from. If you have really dry conditions, they thrive in that, so I try not to let that happen. I'm not always successful, but okay. Alright, and that will be the last one from that one. I'm going to push the soil down a little bit so it get on any air pockets, because if you have air pockets, the water will go right through and the plant won't be able to drink. So that's that. We're going to see what happens with this one. I'm going to put this in my south window and hope that that this will flourish and not just survive, but thrive. Alright, so we're going to put that aside. I don't want to mix those with the ones I'm going to cut off from my plant, because I want to see if I can get those to root. I don't want to mix them up. So I'm going to cut some of these off, because I want you to see where I'm cutting. I want you to see how this is. You can see how this is getting kind of bare on the soil surface. And like I said, that happens to a lot of plants, hanging plants. So we're gonna try and remedy that today. And here's a perfect specimen for that. This piece right here, it's green, it's healthy, and it's viable. But there's nothing on it. This dried up. So I'm going to cut this back probably to here, because I want the growth to come from here, not from here, if that makes sense. All right. Oh darn, and I forgot to put ridding powder on those cuttings. That's okay. I'll pull them out after the video and redo that, because I want to put ridding powder on there. I don't know what goes on with my memory these days, but I do struggle with brain fog. Brain fog. Like many people today. I see that Prevagen commercial on TV all the time. I keep teasing my husband and telling him he needs that. Alright. And there's another one here. And this I'm going to use for cutting. And the reason is it's got very beautiful growth on the end. It's very sturdy, healthy. But there's a spot in here that's bare. So I'm going to cut this back, and I'm going to go all the way down to the soil, like I said. I'm going to go right here. And then I'm going to no, I don't think I will cut it. I think it's going to be okay. It feels a little woody toward the top, but I'm going to chance it. I'm gonna propagate this. So I'm gonna just set that aside for now. I have quite a few of those, but I'm not cutting all of those off, because I sure don't want to have a bare side to my plant. Now this is one that I already did cut. Hopefully you can see that, how thick that is. That's a very old stem. But look at all the bare spots on it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it right here. That will leave this. Actually, I should cut that too, and I should rid it. I'm hesitating because this is such an old stem and it is kind of woody. I'm not sure if it's going to root. So I'm not sure if I want to cut that, but I think I'm going to have to decide out later on that one. Here's a perfect one. You can see how the growth is coming up from the soil here. I'm going to cut it right above this leaf. And that's where it's going to sprout out new shoots. I'm going to get new growth from here. That'll help to fill up this part. And the part that I cut off, I'm going to repot. I've got some very, very long strands on here, but I don't want to cut them at the bottom because I don't want to end up with that bunchiness at the bottom. Now here's one that's got, I can see new growth coming up from here, tiny, tiny growth, and a little bit here. So I'm going to leave this one alone, even though it's got a lot of bare stem there. I can see new growth coming here, so I'm going to just leave that, I think. Or should I? No, you know what? I am going to cut it. I'm going to cut it right above that new growth. And by the way, folks, I did sterilize my clippers with alcohol before I did this. So that's very important to do. Alright, so now I got this piece. And where I cut it, this has got a lot of new growth on it. And it's coming out from another little stem that also has a lot of growth. So that is going to eventually bush out up here. And as long as I don't mess up on my watering, this should get all full in here again, like it was when I bought it. So that's something to keep in mind when you're dealing with your string. Now look at this. This has got, this stem here is pretty long with nothing on it. But the color on the part that is on it is gorgeous, and it's got a cluster of tulips that are about to grow open. So I'm not going to cut that. If those tulips weren't on there, I'm sorry, tulips, lipstick plants, the lipstick flowers. I'm sorry. If those weren't on there, I would be cutting this. But I'm not going to cut it because I want to see those lipsticks bloom. Okay. And here we have another one. Oh, and there is a leaf growing on this one. This is the same thing I just showed you before. There is a leaf down in here. If you can see that. So it's growing new foliage from just above the soil. I'm going to cut it just above that. And then the plant can put all its energy in that instead of trying to keep this piece alive, which is missing a lot of foliage. Alright. I think that's about it for the cutting today on here. I don't want to cut too much in one day. I don't want to stress out the plant. But I just wanted to give you an example and show you if you're one of those people that are struggling with getting fullness in your plants, at the top here, this is one way to do it. That feels dead, but when I pulled on the root, it didn't want to come out, so I'm not going to pull too hard because the roots might still be good. And when you see those leaves falling off, that is again a sign of needing water. That happens, by the way, with burro's tails too. If you guys have a burro's tail or donkey's tail, as some people call it, and I think there are two different things. I researched it one time and it said one of them had more pointy leaf and one a more pointy tip, and one had a more rounded tip. I think the burro's tail was the rounded, but I'm not for sure on that. So don't quote me, but anyway, there's another piece. But anyways, what happens is when they're too dry, they will fall off. And they do that in an effort to save themselves because they don't have the energy to hold on to those leaves because they don't have the water in the roots and the nutrition and what have you. So when you go to repot a burro's tail or donkey's tail, make sure you give it a good watering the night before or even 2 days before, so that your fallout is very minimal. And that's actually an exception to how I do things, but I think I've said that in the past, that I like to repot with dry soil because I like all the soil to come off so I can see what's going on with the roots, and the fine roots aren't going to break off with that wet soil. But I did always say that there are exceptions to that, and that's one of them. You don't want to handle that plant if it's really low on water, because you will definitely lose a lot of foliage. All right, now let's see about this. Can we? I'm going to do one more over here. This is that same cluster that I cut 2 other ones off of. And so that right there, that whole clump right there, there's a lot of growth on there. And that's all going to, it's going to start growing and be beautiful again. I have a few here from when I took some cuttings a couple months ago. So it's kind of slow as far as replenishing, but it's all right. It's all right. Here's another one, and I'm going to bring this around here. Another one that's got growth at the soil level. I'm going to cut that and give that a chance to grow. And I'm going to use the end of it for propagating. Alright, I think we're getting toward the end here as far as the cutting. Again, this plant really likes the south light. Very bright light. Very bright light. This plant can also be overwatered very easily, so be careful with that. And we all know once you overwater, it's pretty hard to, if not impossible, to bring a plant back. If the roots have been damaged by overwatering, very difficult to bring it back. Depending on how much damage, not always impossible, but just try not to let it get to that point. And okay, I think I'm gonna be, look at that cute little guy there. But you see what I mean, how it's coming from the soil? So eventually it's gonna fill, and if I don't shirk my duties on watering and end up with this going on, this will produce more, and it will shoot off the ones that grow inside the pot. You'll get plants from that as well. Kind of like the other strings. If you take your string of pearls and you spread it around the top of this soil, one of the long strings, and kind of secure it in there, that too will produce new growth. But I think most of you know that already, so I don't want to ramble on here too much. Alright, I think we're good on the cutting. I don't think I'm going to do any more cutting today. I think that I keep picking this one up with the lipsticks on the end because it's got such a long strand with nothing on it. And I was really I really wanted to clean this up. How's this one? And also, keep in mind that when you're rooting, and this is going to be the key here. What I want to do is I want to take, like I do with other plants, I want to take and put this in rooting powder, and I'm tempted to stick it back in here. But I'm not going to do that, because when you're trying to root, especially something that's really hard to root, this is going to need a lot more water than this plant does. So if I'm trying to please both this and this, that's not going to happen. So I'm going to put these in separate soil, and then once they develop their roots, then I will put it back in here. But yes, I've done that, and I'm tempted to do it. And it doesn't mean it won't work. I have done it successfully, but it is a lot more difficult. You got to pay so close attention, because if you overwater, you can overwater it really easy, and we don't want to do that. Okay. All right. So I'm going to. Oh, I see one more little one here. All right. Alright, I think we're pretty good on this. I'm going to spray her down, give her a little bit of a shower, and then I'm going to water her and hang her back up in the south window. And I am going to rip those other cuttings, and I'll be back. And there she is, back in her spot. This is a south window, and as you can see, she's getting that full sun on the top of the pot. Let's see if I can get a little closer here. You see how the sun is shining down on the pot? That's really important with this plant. And before I say goodbye on this video, I'm just going to walk over to my string of pearls. I just want to show you what that looks like. Sorry for the jerkiness, friends. Do you see how full that is in there? That is a healthy plant. And you see how long the strands are. They go almost all the way down to the floor. And while we're on the subject, that is my Tradescanthia baby belly bunnies. And that too, I took some cuttings from the top so that it would fill out, and it is filling out. And that looked a lot like my lipstick plant before I did that, so I hope you guys get the idea. I hope I explained myself good. Okay, folks, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and oh yeah, today's Friday, so if I don't come to you before then I wish you all a very happy and fun and relaxing weekend. Until then, or until next time, bye now.